My golden retriever, Max, saved my life, though not how you'd ever expect it happened. He didn't drag me out of a burning room or warn me of sudden health danger creeping up on me. He simply refused to step inside my home for days. 3 entire days he resisted. And when officers eventually showed up holding a valid warrant, what they uncovered in hiding within my attic space made my entire bloodstream freeze instantly. My name is Jessica Monroe. I'm 32 years old. I work as a graphic designer working. From home, I live alone inside a calm, quiet suburb neighborhood deep in Oregon's peaceful outskirts. Well, not entirely completely alone. I have Max, my 5-year-old golden retriever buddy who's been my closest friend and loyal shadow for years. My younger sister Vanessa lives roughly 2 hours away from me, and she's a nurse. We talk every single day. It's the person I reach out to whenever anything goes wrong at all. I never dreamed I'd be calling her about something this horrific and unbelievable. If you're watching somewhere right now across the entire world, drop a comment telling me exactly where you're tuning in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button soon, because this story might absolutely change how you view pets for the rest of forever. 6 months earlier, I purchased my very first little house. It felt like a fresh beginning after my divorce. The house dated back to the 1940s. It's one of those older, charming homes with wooden floors that creak beneath footsteps. The windows let in warm morning sunlight that filled everything beautifully. It had charm and personality, a soft history, and, importantly, it finally truly belonged to me and no one else. The best part was clearly the attic space on top. I had endless plans imagined to turn it into my private workspace where distractions vanished. Maybe I'd finally organize those boxes left unpacked too long. My life settled into calm, predictable patterns day after day. I'd wake around 7 usually, then take Max out walking through our quiet, peaceful neighborhood path. We'd return and I'd brew coffee while Max stretched himself lazily across the kitchen floor without a single worry. I'd then settle at my desk in the living room, working until lunchtime most days. Then we'd spend extra time together, relaxing in the backyard. Max would chase squirrels happily while I'd sit quietly working on the porch steps outside with my laptop, breathing fresh air drifting softly around us. Evenings were always our shared time to unwind and relax. He curled right beside me while I watched random shows or flipped through a book. It was calm, simple, comforting, and exactly what my life needed during those heavy months. Max was honestly the easiest dog I had ever raised. He had quirks like all dogs do, but he stayed steady and predictable every day. He loved routine, just like I did, without question, always. Every morning, same walking route. Every evening, same warm spot on the couch beside me. He was friendly with neighbors, gentle with children, and never made trouble for anyone, ever. Why, the moment that Tuesday evening in late September hit me completely without warning. We had just finished our usual evening walk together outside. The weather was absolutely perfect. That early fall mild temperature where a light jacket helps. But everything still feels warm. Max acted normal the whole time, sniffing each tree trunk, wagging at joggers passing by, pulling me eagerly toward the park exactly like he always did every single evening walk. But when we returned home and I pushed open the front door to step inside, Max suddenly froze in place. He planted his feet firmly on the front porch boards and refused to walk further. I assumed he was being playful at first, maybe wanting to stay outside slightly longer. I laughed and tugged gently on his leash, expecting movement. Nothing happened. He didn't budge. I stepped inside and called to him, hoping he'd follow. Sat down right there on the porch, staring silently straight at me without blinking. I grabbed his favorite treats from the kitchen cabinet drawer, the ones that usually make him practically attempt backflips. I held them at the doorway, trying to lure him. He looked at the treats, then looked straight at me and slowly backed away again. I tried absolutely everything possible. Squeaky toy, his bowl, even his water dish too, carried all the way out onto the front porch step. Max just whimpered very softly, then lowered himself right down on the porch floorboards. Quietly, his eyes fixed intensely on the open doorway, like something unseen blocked him from crossing. After 20 minutes of trying every trick I ever knew, I finally had to stop. I sat beside him slowly on the porch steps, confused, Max resting his warm head against my lap before releasing this long, low, heavy breath. He wasn't acting sick, either not exactly frightened or nervous. He acted strangely protective instead, almost like he wanted somehow to stop me from entering. But that didn't fit anything. We'd been gone only minutes, 40 minutes out for walking. Nothing could possibly have changed in such a short window. I ran my hand gently through his soft, warm fur and stared toward our house, the lights shining softly inside through the windows, glowing warmly. Everything appeared completely normal outside. I didn't know that normal was about to vanish entirely. Wednesday morning arrived with silence, and Max still refused completely. I'd spent the entire night lying out on the porch beside him, half asleep uncomfortably while he stayed alert listening, his ears twitching at sounds. Once sunlight crept over everything, I tried coaxing him again. Same reaction, same fearful. Backward steps away from the doorway, like it might lunge forward. I was tired and confused, wondering if something was wrong with him in some serious way I hadn't recognized before. I called Vanessa while making coffee inside the quiet kitchen, keeping the front door wide open so I could watch Max still waiting on porch. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy, sounding from her long overnight shift. I told her everything happened, and she immediately suggested maybe Max felt sick or stressed by something hiding inside somewhere. Maybe a dead animal nearby, or a gas leak possibly, or some strange scent lingering only he could sense clearly. That explanation sounded reasonable enough. So I spent the next hour searching every single room. I checked beneath all furniture, inside closets closed for months, behind appliances, gathering dust quietly. I opened the basement door and climbed down carrying flashlight. Nothing appeared disturbed at all. No weird odors or smells, no animal traces or droppings, no water leaks anywhere visible. Everything looked exactly as before, exactly how I left everything yesterday, without any single change. I opened each window inside, hoping fresh air might help if some hidden scent bothered him. Max approached the doorway slowly when I called out gently. He stretched his neck forward to sniff cautiously at nothing and instantly flattened, his ears tight against his head again before backing away in fear. The look in his eyes was no longer simple confusion. It had shifted into fear. By Wednesday afternoon, I realized I desperately needed professional help. I loaded Max into my car and he hopped in happily without the slightest hesitation. I drove straight to our vet's office to get answers. Dr. Raymond Chen had been Max's veterinarian since adoption day, and he knew every detail of Max's complete medical history. I explained the entire situation while Dr. Chen examined him. He checked Max's heart rate, listened closely to his breathing, looked carefully in his ears and eyes for any issues, felt along his stomach gently, stretched and checked his joints. After 20 minutes of testing, Dr. Chen smiled reassuringly, saying Max was in perfect health. His vitals were extremely strong, and he showed absolutely no signs of discomfort, sickness, pain. He responded normally to every single physical check without hesitation. Dr. Chen suggested it might be purely a behavioral matter, possibly some anxiety triggered by a small change I missed. He advised giving Max days to adjust while monitoring him for any symptoms that developed. I left the office feeling more frustrated than even reassured. If Max was completely healthy, why was he acting terrified? Thursday became my breaking point entirely. I'd been sleeping in my car in the driveway nightly for 2 straight uncomfortable nights. I only went inside briefly to shower and grab clothes while Max waited in yard. My workload was falling behind because I could barely Focus. I was surviving on maybe 3 hours of sleep total. Vanessa called, offering to drive up immediately to help me. I told her I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to admit how scared I was becoming, not of Max at all, but of not understanding anything about what was really happening. That evening, something suddenly shifted. Max stood at the driveway's edge as the sun set, staring intently upward toward my house like something silently moved. Specifically, he was staring upward at the second-floor narrow window, the tiny window that overlooked the attic area directly above. He started growling suddenly, this low-rolling rumble rising deep from somewhere inside his chest. I had never once heard that kind of sound before. The fur along his back rose straight upward like needles, and his whole body stiffened. I followed his intense gaze toward the attic window silently, but saw nothing except darkness hovering just behind the glass. The entire street felt quiet. Neighbors were inside eating dinner. And there I stood, frozen in my driveway with Max growling at my own house like the place was haunted. Friday morning, I made plans to call an animal specialist. Before I searched for numbers, I heard a car door slam loudly from the street. Two people in business clothing were walking calmly up my driveway with serious expressions ready. The woman raised her badge and introduced herself as Detective Lauren Briggs along, with her partner, Detective Marcus Wade, beside. They asked if I was Jessica Monroe, if I lived alone, and if I'd noticed anything unusual happening recently around home. When I mentioned Max refusing to enter the house for days straight, their expressions changed instantly. Detective Briggs glanced toward her partner, then back straight at me before asking permission to search my home immediately today. Specifically, she wanted to check the attic area upstairs thoroughly. My heart dropped into my stomach so fast it hurt. Detective Briggs must have noticed the color completely leaving me, because she quickly asked if we could sit down outside. We remained seated on porch steps with Max resting between us while she explained everything in an even, steady voice that somehow made things scarier. They'd been following a suspect for 3 long weeks straight. A man named Dylan Crow, wanted for multiple breaking and entering cases across our entire county. He wasn't an ordinary burglar. He had a disturbing pattern of hiding inside vacant spaces of homes where people lived alone, mostly women targeted repeatedly. Attics, basements, crawl spaces, anywhere he could stay hidden silently for several days at once. He would watch the residents learn their routines daily, quietly, and in 2 confirmed cases, he assaulted victims when ready. Detective Wade added that somebody 2 streets over reported seeing a man matching Dylan's description climbing onto a rooftop near my property for days earlier on Tuesday afternoon before sunset. They spent the past day reviewing neighborhood camera footage thoroughly and found grainy, blurry video showing a man climbing inside through my attic vent opening while I walked Max outside. That happened around 5 exactly, right before Max refused completely to set foot inside again. Cut. I couldn't breathe for seconds. My hands trembled uncontrollably until Detective Briggs gently took hold of my phone when I tried to keep holding it. She asked if there was someone I could possibly call. Someone who could come stay near me for support immediately. I managed to whisper Vanessa's name shakily through my breath. Detective Wade dialed the number for me when my sister answered with a sleepy voice. I couldn't make any words. Detective Briggs took the phone and explained the entire situation in that same calm tone, while I sat there frozen trying to process what happened. Someone had been living silently inside my attic for days. Someone had stayed above me while I slept inside my car outside without realizing anything. It's because my dog somehow knew. Max absolutely knew the truth. Detective Briggs returned my phone, and I heard Vanessa's voice rising high with pure fear telling me she was leaving, right? Now, driving 2 hours. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me through phone. Detective Briggs pulled out a consent form explaining they needed written permission to search property. Her hand was already moving toward her radio to call for backup before I finished, signing my full name shakily. Within minutes, 4 more police cars pulled up with urgency. Uniformed officers gathered across my lawn while detectives discussed clearly the layout of my entire house, so everyone understood entry. I told them attic access was upstairs in the hallway, a pull-down ladder door setup I'd used only once. Before, when I first moved in, Detective Wade told me firmly to stay outside no matter what sounds I heard happening. Max pressed against my leg, his warm, solid body steady, the only thing keeping me grounded while fear tightened inside. I watched through my front window as officers entered cautiously with their hands on weapons. I heard heavy footsteps echoing as they moved through rooms below, searching carefully through everything. Then the distinct long creak of the stairs, being climbed as they headed to second floor, quietly preparing for danger. The house I'd loved deeply 6 months earlier suddenly seemed like a stranger's unsettling place. A home where something terrifying had been happening without me knowing, while I lived normally 4 feet away from danger. I heard the metal scrape of the attic ladder dropping. Flashlight beams swept quickly across the attic window from inside. There were voices giving commands, sharp but too faint understood. Then loud movement shifting above, heavy footsteps pounding. Downward hard, moving faster than when climbing. Detective Briggs stepped forward, calmly, and placed herself firmly between me and the looming house. More squad cars rolled in with their flashing lights pulsing, but still no blaring sirens. Max's tail twitched faintly again for the very first time in almost 4 long days. He remained alert and stiff, but something subtle clearly changed in the tension of him. Finally understood, he relaxed because he sensed the threat that had been inside earlier was finally being dealt with. My dog had been guarding me nonstop through this nightmare, and I had stayed confused instead of properly fully terrified, which maybe had protected me because knowing the full truth might have broken me completely. The front door opened suddenly, and 2 officers stepped out, pulling a man between them, his wrists locked in cuffs. He looked thin and hollow, maybe mid-30s at most, with oily, tangled dark hair and clothes stained from weeks without anything resembling washing. His darting eyes scanned everything, taking in the entire street as they marched him forward toward the waiting patrol car. And for one chilling second, his gaze snapped onto me. Cold electric panic shot instantly through every inch of me. That expression wasn't angered fear, it felt disturbingly recognizable. Somehow, as if he already knew who I was from before, even though I never once saw this man in life. Detective Wade shoved his head down while loading him inside, and only then I noticed that I had stopped breathing. Max released a trembling whine and gently licked my hand. Detective Briggs waited patiently still until the patrol car left before. She moved beside me and settled on the porch. She breathed in deeply once and asked if I felt prepared to hear everything discovered. I wasn't certain I was, but I nodded anyway slowly because answers mattered right now. She told me the suspects. Name was Dylan Crow, 34, and he had been hiding inside my attic since Tuesday, just quietly existing above me. He kept a rolled sleeping bag tucked tightly behind boxes with discarded granola wrapper trash and cracker packages strewn around in plastic bottles he'd filled, using them as a makeshift bathroom hidden in the dark asterisk. But the worst part? The detail that forced Detective Briggs to pause and decide her wording with extreme care was the discovery of his notebook hidden under insulation. Dylan had been documenting everything about me with disturbing precision. What time I woke daily, when I showered each morning, how long I worked uninterrupted, what meals I cooked usually, and when I finally slept. He'd been watching silently. Through the cracks between attic floorboards and narrow slits in vents. Those older houses have attics that aren't fully closed off. And he'd located perfect vantage points, allowing clear views inside my bedroom and the hallway. He knew my full routine better than I even did. Detective Briggs handed me photocopies from one specific page inside, and my stomach dropped instantly. He'd listed my schedule meticulously, hour by hour, for days. He knew I called Vanessa every single morning at 8. He knew I ate lunch exactly at noon each day. He knew I went to bed at 10:30 nightly and read 20 minutes before switching my bedroom lights off. Detective Wade approached and added they also uncovered a knife inside Dylan's packed backpack along with duct tape and zip ties wedged into side pockets. He pulled out his notebook and explained Dylan repeated this with 2 other women previously in nearby towns this year. One woman was assaulted inside her own home but escaped. The other had awakened, terrified to find him standing silently beside her bed, watching her. Both cases remained completely open because Dylan vanished before arrest. They'd been searching months to track him down without success. Detective Wade's voice softened quietly when he said Dylan wrote plans for this exact Friday for tonight once I slept. He withheld the precise details, and I didn't request them. The look on his face told me more than enough. If Max hadn't refused entry, if I'd dragged him inside or boarded him at kennels thinking he was acting difficult, I'd have been alone upstairs for 4 nights with someone dangerous living 10 feet above my bed preparing to attack. I couldn't keep myself composed. I held Max tightly, sobbing into his fur, uncontrollably shaking. He remained still beside me occasionally, licking my face gently, like he understood completely everything. A car screeched up suddenly, and Vanessa leaped out fast before it entirely stopped moving. She sprinted across my lawn and wrapped both of us into her arms, immediately crying. We sat together on steps, the 3 of us holding each other while officers moved in and out gathering evidence from every room inside house. Detective Briggs told me gently I'd need to stay elsewhere for a few days temporarily while they processed the scene. I couldn't imagine stepping inside that house ever again. Max wagged his tail fully for the first time since that Tuesday, sensing somehow the danger had disappeared and that I was finally safe again completely. I stayed with Vanessa for 2 full weeks and honestly couldn't bring myself to even drive past my house once. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined that man inside my attic staring down through floorboards, watching every movement silently, listening to my conversations daily, learning details about my life while I remained totally unaware he existed. Vanessa took leave from work to stay beside me those earliest days because I couldn't sleep for more than minutes. I'd wake up repeatedly through the night panicking, convinced someone was standing somewhere inside the room. Max slept pressed against me every single night, and his warm presence was the only thing helping me feel remotely safe or steady again. The police investigation progressed quickly once they arrested Dylan and secured evidence. Detectives uncovered items inside his belongings that tied him to 4 additional cases beyond the original 2 they previously suspected. For women who had endured the same nightmare I nearly experienced myself. 2 later stepped forward after hearing about arrest and shared their stories with detectives in detail. Both mentioned their pets had behaved strangely before their own terrifying moments. One woman's cat constantly yowled at her ceiling. Another's dog barked nonstop at the basement door. Both dismissed it originally, never imagining the reason behind their animals' panic. After 2 full weeks, I realized I needed to return to home. Vanessa drove me back and we walked together through each room quietly, Max confidently leading ahead. Police had finished processing the entire scene thoroughly and removed Dylan's belongings. But I still sensed his presence lingering somehow faintly. The attic felt especially wrong, like heavy air. Vanessa helped me throughout that entire first weekend. We installed a full security system with cameras on every single corner, motion sensors on windows and doors throughout house, and an alarm directly connected to local authorities. We've replaced every lock in the entire place, and I hired contractors to permanently seal attic vent completely from outside so no one could ever enter from there. I couldn't afford transforming the attic into office anymore after paying everything for those security upgrades. But I didn't care. I never wanted to go up there again ever for any reason. Anyway, the most important change I made afterward was adopting a second dog for added safety. I found little Luna at a nearby rescue shelter, a 3-year-old mixed German Shepherd with energy. She'd been returned twice by families saying she was too alert constantly, always barking at everything possible. That sounded exactly like the protection I needed. Max and Luna bonded immediately like lifelong companions meeting. Having both of them in the house made me feel truly protected in ways alarms couldn't. It took several months before the house started feeling like mine. Again, I moved my desk to a different room because working beneath that spot where Dylan watched me from above felt too unsettling to ignore. I rearranged all furniture and painted multiple walls, anything to make everything feel different from before. Vanessa visited every weekend for the first 2 months, and slowly I began sleeping through nights without waking in fear. The court proceedings were difficult and exhausting emotionally. I had to testify about everything that happened and see Dylan again inside that tense courtroom. But knowing he was going to prison long term helped me move forward. He received 18 years for multiple horrifying charges, including stalking and attempted assault, plus forced entry. The judge specifically noted that Max's behavior likely saved my life completely, which made me break down crying in court. I decided to share my story publicly because I wanted people understanding something important and crucial. A trust year? Animals always. They sense things humans can't see or detect. Things our bodies aren't built to register naturally. It's changes in air pressure, unfamiliar scents drifting around, sounds beyond human hearing, the presence of someone who shouldn't be there. Max sensed someone hiding in that attic long before I had any clue something was wrong. His refusal to enter wasn't stubbornness or defiance, nor a behavior issue, nor anxiety acting out. It was pure protection. It was telling me in the only way he possibly could that our home wasn't safe. I spent 4 days confused, frustrated, unaware, instead of listening to what he tried to communicate. If you have pets and they act strange, pay attention very closely. Don't dismiss it immediately. It might be nothing, but it might be everything you need knowing. People always say dogs are man's closest friend, but Max was more than that to me. He was my guardian, my protector, and hero. I truly owe him my life entirely now. And that's no exaggeration. Now, every single time he hesitates at doorways or stairs towards something I cannot see myself or growls at sounds I didn't hear happening, I stop and listen because ignoring it once almost cost me everything. Max is 9 now, and Luna just turned 6 years old recently. We still live inside that same exact house, the one that almost became the worst mistake of my entire life, but instead taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned personally. Every evening, the 3 of us sit outside in the backyard together and watch glowing sunsets. Max rests his head on my knee gently, like he always does, and I scratch softly behind his warm ears while thanking him again. I'll never stop thanking him for saving me. If this story made you think differently about the pets in your life, then hit that subscribe button and comment, telling me about times your pet warned you about danger or trouble. I read every comment and love hearing stories. Trust your instincts always. Trust your gut deeply. And most importantly, trust your loyal animals completely.